In today's video, we're going to be looking at Zombie Snott in the color Drop Dead Red. I was partially wondering why they called this Zombie Snott, but as soon as I opened it, I think I can see why. It's kind of a thick texture. It's a little bit chunky, and honestly, Zombie Snott is exactly how I would describe this. So I believe this is the second video in my installment of small business dyes. I was actually hoping to do them more frequently, but after I started my Lunar Tides Zodiac thing, it definitely makes it a lot harder because I'm always trying to fit in new Lunar Tides dyes and then enough time for the mixes and stuff. But this brand was highly requested and I got it off of Etsy. Of course, I will link their Etsy shop down below. I believe at the time of me buying this was a newer color, which is why I decided to go with this color in case anyone was curious, but that was kind of a while ago, so there's a good chance there's probably reviews for it up already, but of course, I'm still going to do it. So you may notice I have my swatches labeled 1 through 12, but that's not going to be synonymous with hair levels. I do pictures and close-ups and stuff near the end of the video, so the numbers just help us keep track of each swatch. These are human hair swatches, but they are not all virgin hair. The only one that is virgin hair is the number 4 black swatch. Number 1 is green. Red and green are across from each other on the color wheel, so I wanted to see how well this reddish color would cover the green. 2 is gray. 3 is a natural red. 4 is black, and then from 4 to 11 we have a range that goes to platinum blonde, and then number 12 is like a toned version of number 11. So I will start by taking the dye directly from the container and I'll put it at the top of each swatch. And then some people like to dilute their dyes, so I will do a diluted version at the bottom of each swatch. Please keep in mind, everyone's hair is different, which means everyone's hair will take dye differently. I've also noticed that different screens and monitors will have a really big effect on how colors look, especially undertones. So please just use my video as a reference as to how it could possibly turn out for you. So for the diluted section, we're going to do an 8-to-1 ratio. So that is 8 parts of diluter to 1 part dye, which tells you that this stuff is very, very pigmented. If you're unsure what diluter is, my simple answer that I like to give is that it basically is just something that lightens the color of the dye. And if you're wondering what I just use a plain white conditioner for diluting. So I'm going to let these sit for about 3 hours. After that, I will rinse them out, and when they're dry, I will meet you back here and we'll do some comparisons. So if you couldn't tell, this is pretty pigmented. On the direct eye portion, I actually see a difference on all of them except the number 4 black swatch. The number 5, it's not super visible, but I think it is at least a little bit visible. As per usual with the browns, it almost just kind of makes it look like a darker brown instead of the red tones. But there's a chance in natural lighting you might be able to see a sparkle of that red. So the direct eye completely covered the top of the green, and then the bottom, it looks like it neutralized it near the top, but then the ends, probably because they're more porous, took a little bit more of that red. 2 was gray. As usual, the diluted section looks more cool toned than the blonde ones, but the direct eye doesn't really look too much different from the rest. So the number 3 looks very similar to the number 7. You can see a slight bit of that red. It looks like maybe like a brownish red on the direct eye portion. And then the ends, honestly, it almost looks like it could be a natural red, just different from the red that it was before. And the same goes for number 7, of course. I feel like you actually can see more of that red tone in the direct eye starting at number 8 and onwards. And as usual, how well this sticks to your hair definitely depends on your hair, but yeah, I would say it looks pretty good on like almost all of the swatches. Part of why you can tell it's also very pigmented is because I feel like I diluted this quite a bit and it's still pretty dark, which also means that you could dilute it even more and get a really good range of color. The one interesting thing is when I was rinsing these out, some of the rinse out turned purple and some of it was the same like reddish color. So if anyone uses this and they see purple coming out, don't be too concerned. At least on my swatches, no actual purple like came out. It's probably just some of the undertone in the dye to make it a little bit more cool toned. I expected this color to be a little bit more unnaturally red, but to me it actually looks like a really nice, almost natural, like it's not exactly natural, but it's a little more muted and closer to like a brown red, which makes it look almost like a natural red. I usually only like to do 2 comparisons per video so that they're not too long, but I have 3 that none of them are really exactly the same, but they're kind of in that same family, so I figured I would just go ahead and show all 3. So this first comparison is more so for anyone who's just curious to see what these might look like next to each other, and this is Arctic Fox in the color Ritual. This is comparable to number 12. This is comparable to number 11. This is comparable to number 10 and number 9. So obviously Ritual is not as dark on the direct eye portion, and mine at least turned out a little bit more of like purpley. It's still kind of a purpley red, but just next to this even, it just looks a lot more purple. And hopefully you can see what I mean when I say that the Drop Dead Red almost has like a natural look to it. So for my next comparison, I actually expected this one to turn out how the Drop Dead Red is, and that is Uberliss in the color Madame Mahogany. This is comparable to number 12, number 11, number 10, and number 9. Like, just based off of the names, I would have thought that Drop Dead Red would look like this, like the Madame Mahogany, and the Madame Mahogany would look like the Drop Dead Red. Like, if I could flip their names, I would. They both are pretty dark on the direct eye portion. Almost very similar. I think because the Drop Dead Red is slightly more muted, it does look darker, but in reality, I think they're about the same. It's just that the light, I think, reflects a little better off of more saturated colors. So obviously, if you couldn't tell by what I meant, the Madame Mahogany is definitely a little bit more red, a little less muted. It's not a super bright like true red at all, but definitely in comparison, it's a lot less natural looking. And then my last comparison is from Lunar Tides in the color Cran Baby. This is comparable to number 12, number 11, number 10, and number 9. So this again is kind of just for anyone who wants to see the comparison. I almost considered doing Blood Moon from Lunar Tides, but that one was even lighter than the Madame Mahogany, whereas the Cran Baby is a little bit darker, so I thought it would be a little bit more similar, but In terms of undertones, Cran Baby is a lot more pinky red and not really as natural looking. So now I'd like to get into the before and after clips. Those, as well as anything after this point in the video, will all be done in natural lighting. I hope this video helped. If you have a request, I do have a link below to a Google form you can fill out. Just remember, I only do dyes that do not test on animals. Thank you to my patrons, and thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in my next video.